Hello again. This is Satan's Trilogy. I am reading from Book 2, Chapter 3, and the beginning of Chapter 4. I am the author and the narrator. This is reading 62. Sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. The limousine stopped, and the door immediately opened, with several of the stadium's ushers standing at the side of the limousine. Each young man wore a burgundy jacket with their name tag on the front left side of their lapel. Esther stepped out of the limousine first and stood close to the car's door as she surveyed the surroundings. One of the ushers continued to help each passenger out of the car by taking their hand as they exited. Tonight's event was big, and the outside of the stadium had thousands of people moving slowly into the arena's foyer. As each person presented their ticket and was quickly scanned for weapons before being allowed to enter the stadium. One of the ushers said, "Mr. Wilson has arranged for your party to use a private entrance. Please follow me." One usher led the way, and the other two walked on each side of the girls, watching the people close by and staying alert to the crowd situation. At the far left of the grand entrance, the lead usher used a key to open the door and welcome the girls to the evening's events. A handsome man with a strong, healthy-looking body, he said, "Please follow me. I'll show you to your seats. Mr. Wilson is delighted that you have all come to what will be a memorable night. Your ride will be at the entrance where you arrived tonight, and of course, if you choose to stay for the BGB show after tonight's events, the driver will wait for you." He started to raise his voice so that everyone could hear him. The noise of the arena was increasing as they approached the interior stadium. Raising his voice, he had to shout, "Please follow me." The girls followed the usher down 3 flights of stairs to the arena's floor, where a wrestling match would be staged in the center of the arena floor. All of the girls were in awe of the excitement, the sounds and smells, and even the crowd was fascinating. The usher led everyone to front row seating at the center of the arena, right in front of the right side of the wrestling mat. "Enjoy the evening and welcome to the 600th W.O.W. event." He smiled and walked away. Riley Gray screamed, "Oh, look, they have cotton candy." She was jumping up and down as if this was the highlight of the night. Raven laughed and waved the young man over. Looking at all of the girls, Raven said, "All right, I am buying. Who wants cotton candy?" Everyone immediately said, "I do." It was the oddest harmony they had ever created, and everyone laughed. "We'll have 7 cotton candies," said Raven, "and they all should be pink." The young man lowered his flat of cotton candy and started to hand them to the girls. The candy was a hot pink spun into a black paper cone. The colors were gothic, pleasing Raven's sense of design and tempting her to say, "Wow, these look like gothic cones." Nothing is ever cheap at these events, and the cotton candy was $6 on the paper cone. Raven pulled out a $50 bill, gave it to the young man, and said, "Keep the change." The young man thanked Raven and turned to continue his sales route. He was carrying at least 2 dozen more cones of cotton candy to sell. before he could retreat to the back where he would switch over to hot dogs for the rest of the evening. The girls all stood in front of their seats, holding their cotton candy and pulling bite-sized waves from the cotton clouds. After all, they were at the very front of the wrestling mat and had 12 feet of empty space in front of them. They were not blocking anyone's view, and after all, the night's events had not started. Esther was allowing herself to enjoy this special dessert. It was seldom found in China, and cotton candy was a sweet that Esther found amazing. She pulled the fibers from the cloud of candy and thoroughly enjoyed the flavor on her palate. The pink cotton candy was sweet as usual, but also had a tart lemon flavor that Esther loved. The lights suddenly went out, and dozens of searchlights scanned the stadium as everyone took their seats. A masculine voice came over the speaker system, welcoming everyone to the 600th World Organization of Wrestlers competition. The girls all immediately took their seats as the lights had dimmed and the spotlights lit the stage in front of them. That was the end of Chapter 3. Now begins Chapter 4. Hope you enjoy it. As the overhead lights faded and the spotlights scrambled about the stadium, every single person in the stadium stood and applauded as the streams of lights eventually focused on the stage and the man wearing a black tuxedo. From the conception of the W.O.W., Michael Wade owned the position of Master of Ceremonies. His demeanor and dress, along with his deep theatrical voice, was by now as recognizable to the fans as the wrestlers themselves, and the fans loved him. Holding a golden microphone close to his mouth, he spoke to the fans, and with his deep announcer's voice, he began the evening's show. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is unlike any other night before. He paused as the crowd gave a huge response, applauding, whistling, and yelling as loud as they could. Michael Wade waited for a few moments and then held up his left hand to calm the crowd's response. He then continued, "Tonight you will witness the W.O.W. entry into a new era." Michael Wade paused as he silently turned around to allow the entire stadium a glimpse of his demeanor. "We at the W.O.W. are celebrating tonight our 600th event, which you are fortunate enough to witness in person." Michael Wade paused for a second and then finished, "A new beginning." He said this with such conviction that the crowd overwhelmingly responded with their enthusiasm. The crowd screamed with cheers. But things move along quickly in a 2-hour show, and the crowd turned. No longer interested in Michael Wade's narration, they had spotted the Phoenix, standing off in one corner of the ring. Knowing when to move on, Michael Wade announced the first match of the evening. Tonight's first match is with the Eastern United States champion of the W.O.W. Michael Wade waited a split second and then yelled out the challenger's name, "Iron Hand Dan." The crowd applauded and some booed. After all, Iron Hand Dan was out of his division and was challenging the current superstar of the W.O.W., the Phoenix. Half of the spotlights moved to an entrance on the main level that had a direct ramp down to the arena. At the entrance, standing in the center, stood a very tall and muscular challenger It was Iron Hand Dan. Off to each side of him was an attractive and physically fit woman. Both had long, dark hair and stood attentive by his side. They wore long, flowing slacks, but had close-fitting tank tops that nicely displayed their figures. Their clothing was red. Even their laced-up wrestling boots were red. They were IHD's bodyguards, and each was capable of the task. IHD stood tall while the spotlights flew about the entrance like fireflies, eventually focusing on him. As the lights settled upon him, he raised his arms, showing the strength his entire body possessed. Slightly behind him and on each side, his bodyguards stood silent, while they kept alert to the surroundings. With every muscle in his perfectly formed body exposed to the audience, he allowed the fans to focus on his stature. Some of the audience applauded, and some booed. IHD seemed unfazed by this. He understood that the majority of these fans were on the eastern coast. IHD seemed half man and half steel, wearing wrestling boots laced up, and over his calves, tight shorts and a loose tank top with his initials emblazed on the back. Everything he wore was of a still metallic appearance, and as he slowly moved towards the arena, the Black Gothic band made screeching sounds of steel rubbing against steel. As IHD approached the arena, he picked up his pace and started to run. As he neared the wrestling mat, he jumped onto a small trampoline that propelled him up and onto the wrestling mat. His arms caught the top rope of the wrestling ring, and he held on with one hand as he landed on both feet, quickly releasing the rope and moving about the ring, demanding applause from the crowd. And many responded favorably to his entrance. His bodyguards had kept close behind him and now stood at the edge of the wrestling ring. They watched each other, and they watched the crowd. Often fans became overly excited at the W.O.W. matches and tried to join the various skirmishes. The two bodyguards were fully capable of removing the average fan before they could create problems for themselves. IHD was free to promote himself without worrying about wild fans of the W.O.W., and he was doing exactly that, flexing his muscles and showing his perfect physique off. He played to the audience. All of the girls, with Esther, loved the show, whistling and yelling words of encouragement while laughing and having a great time. They were in harmony with the rest of the fans. Esther was thrilled to see her best friend and her sister enjoying the evening. The theater of entertainment was amusing to Esther and entertaining at the same time. By now, Iron Dan, as many called him, had taken the microphone from Michael Wade and was quickly telling the audience of his many wins in the W.O.W. As he spoke of his latest conquest, another voice came over the speaker system. The Phoenix was ready to take command. I know your wins, very impressive, and I know your weaknesses, and I will use them against you. The Phoenix had been waiting impatiently off to the side of the ring. Now he was ready to speak. He would now claim the audience as his own. You are strong, but you are young and foolish. I will defeat you tonight because I am superior in every way possible. The stadium was exploding in excitement. The walls were echoing the chanting of the name Phoenix, spoken repeatedly. Michael Wade again had his microphone turned on, and with his clear, low voice, he asked the two champions to approach the center of the ring. You both know the rules. The first to pin the other to the mat for 3 seconds is the winner. This is an 18-minute match. If no one is able to pin the other, you both walk away without any movements in your overall W.O.W rating. Michael Wade looked at both wrestlers as they glared at each other. Michael Wade raised his voice and declared, "Your referee for this match is the W.O.W most experienced referee, Mr. John." The audience erupted in a round of applause as the short and heavy man entered the ring. Mr. John had been with the W.O.W from its inception and was the most popular of all W.O.W referees. He had always been true to his job and called them as he saw them. Mr. John did not have favorites. He loved his job, admired the wrestlers, and loved the fans. In return, he had earned everyone's respect and a handsome salary. With his oily black hair and his pudgy build, he was surprisingly agile while doing his job. Over the years, he had certainly earned his popularity, for he had suffered many mishaps, with a few placing him into the hospital. Yet Mr. John always came back, practicing the same honest calls he had always made. Mr. John wore a golden short-sleeved shirt, and fine black trousers from a tuxedo, and his shoes were a high-quality black leather designed for his job as a referee. They did not mark the mat, as he often went to his knees to count someone out. As the crowd calmed down, Michael Wade asked everyone to leave the ring. The match was about to begin. Several fans for both wrestlers left, offering their comments to their champion and the challenger. The managers and the women left the ring. Then Michael Wade left, and Mr. John stepped forward. He calmly sent both wrestlers to their corners and gave the signal to the timekeeper to start the match. The bell was sounded, and both competitors lunged at the other, grabbing the hands of the other opponent. Each tried to gain an advantage over the other by forcing him to the mat. The Phoenix had an obvious advantage over Iron Dan. He looked to be 3 inches taller, more developed in the upper body, and he had a longer arm reach, all of which would help to bring Iron Dan down to his knees. Quickly, the Phoenix moved around to the back of Iron Dan and placed an arm lock around the challenger's neck. The crowd was yelling everything imaginable, from words of encouragement to curses to both wrestlers. Esther was finding it all very amusing and watched her sister and friends as they enjoyed the spectacle. Riley Grace looked at Esther, smiled at her for a moment, and then turned to the ring and continued to yell at the wrestlers. They, too, sensed Esther's eyes on her and turned her head to Esther. She yelled to Esther, trying to be heard over the shouts of the fans. "I've never been so close to the action. It looks more real close up." She laughed and turned to the match. Day's comment amused Esther. She understood that the wrestling was more performance for the audience than an actual sports competition. And she understood her sister's behavior. The excitement guaranteed at this event was huge, and whether or not the crowd felt the wrestling was true competition, they all loved to experience W.O.W events. The evening's show would be awesome, and the evening show would be exciting. I believe I will stop there. Until next time, be safe and take care.